Hello, folks. Dustin Zarni here. Welcome to Commissioner in the Car. Today is Tuesday, April 18th, and we are going to be talking about petition objections. Let the petition objections begin edition of Commissioner in the Car. Right now, at boards of elections all across New York State, we are entering the objection phase of the petition process. As you know, last week on April 10th, that was the last day for designating petitions to be filed. And once those designation petitions are filed, there is about a 9-day stretch where opponents of those petitions review them and go and look for opportunities to object to those petitions. And once those objections are done, they have to do specific objections. So 3 days after a designating petition is filed, a party can do what's called a general objection. General objections don't really mean anything. They just say, hey, we think there's something wrong with this petition. We need 6 more days to look at the petition. And if those 6 days fall on a weekend, it can go to the Monday. Once that deadline falls under, they have to do what's called specific objections. Now, specific objections is where the juice is, because if a specific objection is filed, then the Board of Elections must review that specific objection, notify the parties of a hearing date, hold the hearing, and then rule on the specific objections. We have actually had, let's see here, I have a little list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 specific objections filed here at the Board of Elections in Onondaga County. And tomorrow, Wednesday, is the last day, and there's 3 or 4 more that could be filed by the end of tomorrow. So we've actually had quite a lot of specific objections this year. So the question is, how many of those will turn into actually invalidating petitions? Well, we have 4 hearings this week. We actually had one today of specific objections that we had already finished. We will have 5 sometime next week for the other specific objections that we have to look at between now and the end of this. And then if we get another one in, we'll try to get that one on as well. It takes a little time to go through these specific objections, so sometimes some are very easy. Sometimes we get an objection saying, well, they don't have enough signatures. That's an easy objection to rule on, and we can get that out of the way. We had a couple of those coming this week. But sometimes it's a little bit more involved with several hundred signatures being objected to. It takes a little time to have our bipartisan teams go through those and then have a ruling and a hearing on that. So those won't happen a lot of those won't happen till next week. And then, of course, there's some objections that have to do with interpretations of election law. Now, the boards of elections do interpret election law, but we have very limited ability to do that with. And sometimes we have disagreements amongst the commissioners about what are the extent of what we can rule on an objection. Now, if we throw somebody off the ballot, they can go to court. They have 3 days from the time we make the ruling to go to court. If we keep somebody on the ballot, but the objectioner wanted to go to court, then they would have to initiate that court proceeding before next Monday, whether we've ruled on the objections or not. So it's a little tricky for people who are trying to throw off the ballot, but if you're trying to throw somebody off the ballot, you have a higher standard than just if you want to stay on the ballot in terms of response to the boards of elections. So in addition to the 9, by the way, specific objections, we already have one court case being developed that is totally different than any of those 9 objections. So we have 10 cases right now today that we're actually going through and making determinations over the next week or 2 of what's going to go on. So let me go over which ones were objected to. The specifics were in for and that we are going to be looking at over the next week or so. The conservative petitions in the 127th Judicial District, the Republican petitions in Common Council District 3 in Syracuse. The Democratic petitions in County Ledge 5 and County Ledge 11 for Onondaga County Legislature. Commissioner of Education in the City of Syracuse Republican petition against Ian Hunter. An at-large petition against for the Democratic at-large petition against Pride Green. Common Council 4 petition against Hazan Bloodworth as a Democrat. Salina conservative petition against Shirley Pinizzotto. And the County Ledge 16th petition for the Working Families petition as well. Now, I said that we had one court case. We do have one court case. That is the Geddestown Republicans. There is a primary. There is a slate of Republicans and another competing petition that has a slate on it that is a Republican petition that is no good as well. Or I'm sorry, not no good. They're going to court to say it's no good. And we have a ministerial role when that happens. There's an allegation of voter fraud on that, and we don't have any role at the Board of Elections on that. And yes, these are two Republicans fighting each other, but it does, we are still involved in that because the outcome of that election will determine whether we have a primary in the town of Geddes for this election cycle. So right now, 10 cases, 9 specific objections, 1 court case that we are involved in as of this moment. So some of these will be resolved by the end of the week. In fact, we already had a hearing on the conservative 127th objections today, and we kept that petition on the ballot. That was actually a matter of election law, interpretation of election law. Someone challenged somebody's voter registration, but it turns out that if you're going to challenge somebody's voter registration, the case law says that you have to do that before the starting of circulating petitions. That's February 28th. So it's actually too late once petitions are in to challenge whether somebody actually lives at the registration that they have provided. Not whether if they're registered. If they're not registered, we can determine that. But we can't go into fact determination about whether somebody actually lives at an address or has the right to register to vote unless that comes before the election day. So we have a lot of stuff going on next week because we're going to have 4 this week and probably 5 or 6 maybe next week. So we'll be in hearings all next week to try to get all of this done so we can be done by May 1st and actually know where our ballot is. On May 4th is when the state board certifies the primary ballot, and we have to be a part of that. And then we'll have a full candidates list up on the website onvote.net. So, there was actually some new law changes for objections this year that I think some of them are really good. And they create a little bit more work for the boards of elections, but they provide more accountability to the voters. For one, boards of elections have to have hearings now. Some boards didn't. Some boards just ruled on stuff without hearings and said you can go to court if you don't like the rulings. But now they have to have hearings. And another thing is that there's incumbent upon the people objecting that they have to overnight mail their objections to their opponents. So the opponents have a copy of the objection so they can prepare for the hearing as well. That's also a good thing because it takes it out of the boards of elections' hands to notify them, and we only have to notify them of the hearing date. And it also gives everybody a chance to defend or know what the accusations are against them. So these 2 changes that were passed by the legislature are in effect for this year, and it's made I actually think we already did hearings, and we already required objectors at our local board to do certified mail. So there's not much changes at Onondaga County Board of Elections on this, just a little bit of change, but I think it's a good change. So we're having our hearings, and I will notify you via my Facebook page what the results are of the hearings as we hold them, because I think it's important for the public to know. But as of today, we've only had one hearing on the conservative 127th judicial delegates, and that has been ruled on, and ruled that it was an improper challenge, and thus the petition remained on the ballot. And that was an interesting thing, because they had dueling petitions for the conservative 127th judicial slate. These are the people who vote on the judicial candidates at the convention for Supreme Court in August. So it was a lot of intense, and it could have intensity, and it could have gone to a primary. However, a couple of people declined the petition, so now there's no primary, and the petition that we had a rule on stayed on, barring any last-minute legal maneuvers by Monday. We should be all set. So next Tuesday, I will do an update of where we stand with our petitions and how how we're going to get through by the end of the week. And by then, we'll know exactly what the court cases are and exactly what the petitions are. So I'll go a little bit more into court cases next week. But this week was about the petitions. We have 9 of them, 9 specific petitions that have been filed, and we'll be through 4 of them this week and 5 of them next week, and we could get a couple more tomorrow. We'll try to get those done next week as well, and be done with these specific petitions, and move on to actually holding the primary, which is what we're here for. So there are some other developments that I want to talk about. As of today, New York State has a new chief judge on the appellate court, Rowan Wilson. He was an associate judge, and he's been confirmed as of this moment, or about to be confirmed to be the new chief judge. As you remember, there was a very big public fight over Governor Hochul's pick of LaSalle earlier in the year. However, there doesn't seem to be much of a fight over Mr. Wilson, and in fact, the Senate moved with speed and to confirm him, and then there will be another position on the appellate court as well. I forgot. I'm going to butcher the name, so I'm not going to say it, but that will be confirmed probably sometime next week, because you had to confirm the chief judge first, then hold a vote on the second one. So it'll either be later this week or next week. So that means that we will have a new appellate court. It's a more liberal court, and in New York, and it may have some implications on redistricting. As you know, there is litigation on the assembly and congressional lines, and we'll see what happens there, and whether those congressional lines are redrawn, because the original judge's order that put in the special master in place 2 years ago was only for 2022. It did not say that it would be in effect until 2030, which is when the next census comes out. So that means, are those maps now have to be redrawn by the New York State, and you put air quotes on this, independent redistricting commission, like the assembly maps are being redrawn right now. So we'll have to see how that goes. But another thing that happened just before I started recording is there's been movement on a couple of major pieces that seem to be holding up the New York State budget. We're about 3 weeks late in the budget, but it seemed that the housing initiatives by Governor Hochul and the bail reform initiatives, or scaling back the bail reform initiatives by Governor Hochul, were the things that were holding up the budget. So now, right before I came on air, there's reporting out there that a deal has been reached on both of those issues. One, that the housing issue will become more incentive-based than punitive, and the bail reform, there's a scale back. I haven't had a chance to read about what that is, and we'll have to see. The proof will be in the pudding when the votes come in. But if those two things are done, we may be seeing an imminent New York State budget, which could have a lot of effect or no effect at all on elections in New York State. So, sorry, just had my Marco Rubio moment there. I had a drink, so those are those things are going to be, I think, over the next week. I think we might have a budget by the time we're here again next week, but maybe not. But if so, then we'll be able to talk about what that means for elections in New York State and if county boards are properly funded. So we wait with bated breath on that. Finally, again, right before I started airing, I wanted to comment on the Fox Dominion lawsuit that had been resolved, apparently, right before coming on air here today at 5 o'clock on Tuesday, the 18th. I think a lot of us in the election world were really looking at this lawsuit because Fox News was the biggest purveyor of the big lie, national chain, national broadcasting, and one of the biggest things they did was talk about the Dominion machines. I want to put up front, we have Dominion machines in Onondaga County. They are safe, they are reliable, they are accurate. They've been proven accurate with hand counts, and they do not connect to the internet or any of the other ridiculous claims that Fox News did. So I, in particular, was looking at this lawsuit that was going to trial this week as a way to see if there would be some retribution for the lies that Fox News and their hosts and personalities spread, which really fed the big lie, which ended up feeding the insurrection that happened after the 2020 election. But it is a big monetary settlement, $787 million. You can't take away from that. That is, over 60% of the operating budget of Fox News. That is a huge amount of money. But it doesn't really feel like it's enough. I think we all wanted to see a contrition. We all wanted to see admission of guilt, being found guilty by a jury that they did spread these lies. Already Fox News is out with a statement saying they're trying to uphold the best of journalistic, integrity or whatever. I mean, we all know that that's not true. So the question is, what do we do? What do we do as citizens? We cannot rest our laurels on hoping that corporations will save us. Dominion has an obligation to their shareholders. Taking a $787 million settlement does good for their country, their company, and it also, has some good in terms of, obviously, Fox News doesn't settle in a sum that large unless they were guilty. That being said, I'm not so sure it does any good for our country or our America as a whole. But you know what? Corporations aren't going to save us. We have to save us. We can only save us at the ballot box. That's the only way that this will ever be resolved in a way that we want. So when you're thinking about going to the polls this year, think about the people that allowed the big lie to spread, that spread lies themselves, whether about voter fraud or bail reform or a million other things out there, and think about, are those the kind of people that we want in public service? Because the people in public service should be held to a higher standard than even Fox News. So if we want a country that rids ourselves of the lies, then we have to rid ourselves of the people that spread those lies. So that's my editorial on that. And I hope you get out there and be active this year. All right. That's all I got for Commissioner in the Car. Later this week on Thursday, I'll be doing a Zoom with Zarni with the Outrun Coalition, a group of activists that are trying to run diverse candidates in rural parts of America, not just New York. We have a great conversation about, the myths about whether Democrats can win in these areas and whether diverse Democrats can win in these areas as well. It's a great conversation. Can't wait for you to see it. On my weekly wonk, I have on my website right now, I did the town of Cicero. I plan on doing the town of Clay this weekend. And so check those out. Everything's at dustinzarni.com. Remember, you can subscribe there and get email notifications of every content or news item that comes up that you may want to pay attention to. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.